Today's Thursday, April 16th, 2020. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered. The latest with the coronavirus pandemic. Donald Trump actually says, states, hey, you can now open up after May 1st. They already knew that. They can make their own decisions. We'll also be joined by former U.S. Surgeon General Dr. Regina Benjamin, who says that how we think about the coronavirus should be how we deal with hurricanes. You don't want to miss my interview with her. After an anonymous tip, 17 bodies found in a New Jersey nursing home. Stunning and shocking. What the hell was Dr. Oz thinking when he was on Sean Hannity and he talked about the reopening of schools and the 2 to 3% rate of deaths we can live with? And then Laura Ingraham on Fox News show says, hey, there are people who have no problem getting the virus. Who? Remember the SBA program we told you about? $350 billion to help small businesses? Well, guess what? They're out of money and the banks are stopping the acceptance of applications. That makes no sense. But also, what's up with these major restaurant chains like Potbelly and Ruth Chris Steakhouse getting $10 million loans? They're not small businesses. We'll talk with John Hope Bryant, founder of Operation Hope. Senator Kamala Harris has introduced the Safe Vote Act, which could make it safe for people to vote during the coronavirus pandemic. We'll break it down. Plus, Lieutenant Justin Fairfax tweets out the name of a person who he says was present when he was involved in a sexual encounter with the woman who accused him of rape. But she's never mentioned that there was somebody else there. Wait until we break that thing down for you. It's time to bring the funk. I'm Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's Uncle Roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
Right now, the White House is holding their daily news conference dealing with the coronavirus. Donald Trump is at the microphone. And as we tell you every day, we do not take him live because he lies far too much. We are not going to feed you fake information and lies. And so we will see what he says and then vet that after the fact. If any of the real experts, like Dr. Fauci or Dr. Birx, step to the microphone, then we will play that for you. Folks, as of today, there are 657,720 confirmed cases of coronavirus in the United States. 33,460 people have died from coronavirus. 53,322 are recovering. Now, that number dramatically increased in New York because of how they counted the folks who died. Now, New York State Governor Andrew Cuomo said that while there were 2,000 people diagnosed with the virus, the state also recorded the lowest amounts of deaths. He found hope in knowing that they can somewhat control the spread of the virus.
The number of new people who are diagnosed with COVID, about 2,000 still yesterday. So when you see the reduction in rates, remember what we're talking about. We're talking about a reduction in increases. You still have 2,000 people every day about who are walking into a hospital for the first time or who are being diagnosed with COVID for the first time. And 2,000 is still a lot of people. But the good news is it means we can control the virus, right? We can control the spread. And we did not know for sure that we could do that. We speculated that we could do it, but we didn't know. So now we know that we can control this disease. The bad news is 2,000 people walked into a hospital yesterday for the first time with the disease, And the worst news is 600 people died yesterday from the disease. That is still continuing at a really tragic rate. Of those deaths, 577 in hospitals, 29 in nursing homes. We've been watching the nursing homes because nursing homes in many ways are ground zero for this situation. Last night, the number in nursing homes was relatively low.
Now, folks, so many different things are happening when it comes to this coronavirus. How clueless is the Trump administration? Well, Donald Trump had a meeting today with the governors where he talked about giving them guidelines for reopening the country on May 1st. Then he creates this group, this working group of 36 members of Congress who are going to be on this committee. How do you create a committee of 36 people, not a single black member of Congress on the committee? No, seriously, per Politico, the White House reached out to 36 members of Congress. There's not a single African American in the group. Who's most impacted by this coronavirus? Black people. Joining me now, Dr. Greg Carr. He's the chair of the Department of Afro-American Studies at Howard University. Reese Colbert, Black Women's Views, and Brooke Thomas. She's the host of Controlling Our Narrative podcast. Glad to have all three of you on. I will start with you, Reese. Just saying, 36 members of Congress, which represents a little less than 10% of all the members, and ain't nobody black, not even Republican Tim Scott.
Well, Tim Scott says that he's going to be on the council, but it's obvious that he is an afterthought if he is in fact going to be on the council. But Tim Scott is the same person that said that the $600 extra a week that's included for unemployment on the federal level is going to incentivize people to stop working. And so he was opposed to that. So even, I don't want to say all skin folk and kin folk, but if the shoe fits, hey, we need real representation. We need an actual seat at the table. Regardless of how people feel about the Trump administration, the people who are a part of this task force are going to have some sort of influence on the policies. We have the largest congressional Black caucus ever. So they had, Congresswoman Maxine Waters is the chair of House Financial Services Committee. She's laid out an extensive economic plan for how to reopen the economy. That's a person that you would think he'd want to tap into and use as an ally. You also have on the Senate side, you have Senator Cory Booker and Senator Kamala Harris, who has put out plan after plan, bill after bill that addresses a wide variety of things. So why not tap into those people? It seems to me that, with the disparate treatment that we're seeing and the outcomes we're seeing in Black communities, it's going to continue because our interests are not going to be represented at the table.
Greg.
Yeah, no, I agree with Reese. I mean, this is, I respect Donald Trump and his clavering. They are pulling out all the stops. They've dropped all pretenses. On a day when we can look, and Newsweek just reported that the governor of North Dakota is saying that, they're going to try to reopen May 1st. And in South Dakota, neighboring South Dakota, the Smithfield Pork Factory in Sioux Falls is now outpacing Cook County Jail in Illinois as the biggest coronavirus hotspot. What do we see? We see that, although in all fairness, the Smithfield Pork Factory in Sioux Falls, a lot of people who work there are immigrants, are non-white. But what we're basically seeing is white nationalism, as my friend and ancestor now, former colleague Ron Walters used to call it. They're circling the wagons. In a moment, when you see them trying to engage in voter suppression by doing everything from shortening the time that people can mail in votes to basically cratering the United States Postal Service, they realize they will never win another federal election. And so why keep up the pretense, whether it be the daily pep rally, press conference / campaign stops that Trump is doing from the White House, or whether it be this instance of putting together a committee with people who shouldn't be anywhere near it and then reaching out to Congress for your allies and ignoring everyone else. They're sending a clear message. The idea that this is a nation, always a fantasy, has now been dropped, and they are willing to sacrifice everybody. The only other thing I would say is that Donald Trump has realized, he doesn't realize this perhaps, and his supporters don't realize this, but everybody also means poor white people. Because as this disease, as this virus reaches those red states, some so-called flyover country, when you see death in those states, it won't be reported with the same type of ferocity and the same type of media attention that you're getting in New York or Los Angeles or Atlanta or New Orleans. And if that death, when that death reaches that level of crisis in those states, I wonder how those voters who are wearing those red MAGA hats will respond to this man who is clearly using them as a human shield to advance his political interests.
But, Brooke, here's the whole piece. I don't think they care about that. Do y'all have that soundbite from Laura Ingraham last night on her show? If y'all have that soundbite, I want to play it right now. This is literally what she said last night in terms of, well, people don't mind getting coronavirus. I mean, it's crazy. Then you have Dr. Oz, who makes his comment. And so I play either one of those where he's like, well, you know, we could reopen the schools and bring them back in as well. So let me know, play either one of those if y'all have it ready. All right, so let me just go ahead and pull it up myself, because this to me is crazy. All these people are pining, Brooke, for business to open back up, and I get it. I mean, look, we are impacted by what's happening economically, but this is Dr. Oz last night.
Dr. Oz, help us. Well, first, we need our mojo back. Let's start with things that are really critical to the nation, where we think we might be able to open without getting into a lot of trouble. I tell you, schools are a very appetizing opportunity. I just saw a nice piece in The Lancet arguing that the opening of schools may only cost us 2 to 3% in terms of total mortality. And, you know, that's any life is a life lost. But to get every child back into a school where they're safely being educated, being fed, and making the most out of their lives with a theoretical risk in the backside, it might be a trade-off some folks would consider. We need to get industry back, supply lines. I mean, things that we can do without putting the nation at risk. Dr. Oz, help us.
So you just heard him talk about this idea of 2 to 3%. Now, first of all, is he saying 2 to 3% of children? There are 57 million children who go to public schools. That's 1.2 to 1.6 million kids dying. Really, Brooke?
It's absurd. How do you say any life lost is a life lost? But how do you have a but to that? We're talking about lives. It's like, I think about it in a way of like the idea of choosing not to wear your seatbelt because only some people die when they go through the windshield. Even though we have a process in place, it's not the best right now. And no, it's not great for the economy, but we have a process, we have mitigation tactics in place right now that if people follow them, they will save lives. And that's all we have right now. We don't even have testing capabilities. What's been so frustrating to me about all of this, not even watching people who have such privileged lives talk about how it's not a big deal that people are going to die, that thousands and thousands of people, tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people, potentially millions of people could possibly die, that it's not a big deal because of the economy, blah, blah, blah. What's so frustrating is that this was a layup for Donald Trump. He could have simply taken any of the professional information that he was getting from doctors, from scientists, from experts months ago. He could have pushed these mitigation tactics into place, and now he would be sitting back saying, I told you so. Look at all of these other countries. I told you so. See, I am a good president. And everybody who hates everything about that comes out of his mouth would have had to been like, yeah, he's right about this one. And he didn't do that. And so now he's playing catch up, just trying to save face, and not at all. It doesn't seem to be worried about saving lives. And that's so frustrating. We are not at a place right now where we should be talking about forcing people at risk, people back to work, back to schools. We're not at that point right now. And it's so frustrating that everybody involved is not pointing out how ridiculous that is when anybody brings it up.
And what we're also dealing with now, what we're now dealing with are folks who are very good at lying, including his new press secretary, Kayleigh McEnany. Of course, you used to see her on CNN and this whole nonsense. She sent this tweet out here. As a result, the United States has now conducted more than 3.3 million tests, far more than any other country in the world. Okay, actually, if you look at per capita, South Korea has tested more. That's 3.3 million. Folks, that's literally 1% of America. Any scientist will tell you, any doctor will tell you, you cannot get enough data to understand the impact of this virus with only 1% of testing. And these folks are saying, let's just go back and again, back to group settings, putting people in environments at work. And you'll hear later in my interview with Dr. Regina Benjamin, they're still trying to figure this damn virus out.
Right.
This is, it's stunning to listen to these people as if, hey, it's going to be all good. Because here's the other thing. What now happens, Greg, if you get sick? What the hell? Who's paying those hospital costs?
Well, Roland, I think it's difficult for all of us because we've been raised in a society to think of the United States as a single entity. It's not true, not culturally, not socially. They're using what they have, which is the so-called bully pulpit, the propaganda element. So when you say accurately that 1% of the population of the country has been tested, we're thinking of the country as one place. But we've seen this week with the governors on the West Coast and the governors on the East Coast, they are in control. Someone has reminded or taught this fool in the last several days that he has no control. So he can put a talking head out there to say what you want. But at the same time, New York, Pennsylvania, California, Washington State will determine how best to approach the execution of what is a simple fact. People must be tested. Now, he doesn't control that. In Louisiana, there is a governor who will do that regardless of whether this corn-pwned senator who some claim had some kind of education at Oxford, John Kennedy, is running around saying, well, gotta open the economy. Okay, that's just talk. I guess what I'm saying finally, Roland, is that this type of campaign against public awareness will only be as effective as state and local leadership allows it to be, which means now, and you've been covering this, at the local level, when people go in the communities and say we have to be tested, we're going to have to meet them where people are, the garbage workers, the people working in the grocery stores. And when you come and say you must be tested, you've got to now also help them overcome suspicion of government from Tuskegee and Henrietta Lacks and others. And those are local conversations. Ain't nobody listening to that white girl.
It is. And not only that, so Reese, check this out. In New Jersey, they got an anonymous tip. The police in Andover, New Jersey, went to a nursing home, saw a body being stored in a shed outside one of the state's largest nursing homes. When the cops showed up, they discovered 17 additional bodies piled inside the nursing home's small morgue, intended to only hold no more than 4 people. 17 people they discovered. 68 deaths total linked to this long-term care facility. And then a number of people also sick. Here's the deal. Other people who died, including 2 nurses, also tested positive. Cause of death is unknown. Of the patients who remain at the homes, which is housed in 2 buildings, 76 have tested positive for the virus, including 41 staff members, including an administrator. Let's go to Florida, where Governor Ron DeSantis, he wants to give nursing homes immunity from being sued. It's stunning, Reese, what is happening here. They are treating like, oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry, we'll cover you from being sued. Don't worry about these deaths.
You know, it's absolutely stunning, the neglect, the cruelty, the apathy that this administration has towards people in nursing homes. Frankly, the Republican base is quite old. I don't mean that in a pejorative way.
Yeah.
They have an older demographic what message are they sending their demographic? If for no other reason for electoral survivability, they want to get a lid on this. And the fact that they don't even give a shit about these folks should be a red fire alarm for everybody else. It's absolutely disgusting. It goes to the fact that we don't have a handle on the amount of carnage that is being caused by this virus. It also goes to the point that Republicans have said it's okay if people in nursing homes die. It's okay if we bring the kids back to school and they die. But I can tell you, every single person that I've seen in the news, once they have been personally impacted by it, they change their tune.
Right.
When you have the pastors, for instance, that said, I'm gonna, hold church or whatever else, or this is a hoax, and they die, their family says, take this shit seriously. And so it's not until it hits close to home for some of these folks that it's going to really, really drive home the point that this is a public, global, with Donald Trump attacking the World Health Organization, with him attacking the blue states versus the red states. This is a global and national public health crisis where we have to be united. We have to actually address the problem. Donald Trump cannot bluster and bullshit his way out of this coronavirus pandemic. We need a competent and empathetic and long-term and immediate action on this. Testing, PPE, all of these things. And the fact that they keep lying about it is really scary, because that means that they're not taking action on it. And that's what we need right now. We need action, not bullet points and not bluster.
Here is Laura Ingraham last night talking about this. I'm trying to figure out, Brooke, why in the hell is she smiling? Watch this.
Okay. Life is filled with risks, in other words. We should all be careful and we should all be responsible, but the government cannot, nor it really should try to eliminate all risks associated with COVID-19 any more than it could with the H1N1 or the swine flu. When we step out of the door, when we walk onto the streets, we enter a building, we get into a car, get on a bike, there are always relative risks. But the damage to millions and millions of lives, including children's lives, and our basic freedoms during the shutdown, that's also very real. And for many, it has been absolutely devastating. Many are willing to take the risk of contracting the virus. We've seen that in the polling, frankly, what they rate as more worrisome to them. And they would risk this in order to preserve their way of life. Oh, okay. Life is filled with risks.
Okay, I'm trying to understand. Kill the audio, guys. So I'm trying to understand, Brooke. They're willing to risk that to preserve their way of life. Yeah, until they get sick. Until all of a sudden they begin to realize that, oh, I didn't even realize. So I might have it and I don't know it, and I might infect you, but then you have a pre-existing condition. Now all of a sudden you're worse off, and I can also spread it and have no idea. And that's really what the problem is. I mean, look, here's the whole deal. When somebody has the flu, we know they have the flu. When somebody has the flu, they are sniffling, coughing, wheezing. You can see throat, you can see it in their eyes, they're fatigued. There are people with coronavirus who are asymptomatic. You do not. I have never met, Brooke, somebody with the flu who said, I didn't know I had that damn thing.
Right.
I couldn't feel nothing. No, you know when you have the flu. And that's what the issue here. And I think, and I'm telling you right now, all these people can say whatever they want to say. I'm going to tell you right now, millions of Americans going to be like, y'all go ahead on out there. Go on. Y'all go ahead. Go on, kill yourself. I'm going to keep my ass right here while y'all go kill yourself. Brooke, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what else is different about this is that when people have a mild case of the flu, and I obviously think everyone should get flu shots. Everyone should do what they can to protect themselves from the flu during flu season, because the worst case scenario about the flu is death. And nobody wants that. That's the worst case scenario. But a mild case of the flu feels like a bad cold, right? A couple body aches, you're sniffling. That's a mild case of flu. I've had a bad flu, not the worst flu. But there are mild cases of this where people are talking about lying in their beds for 10 days, feeling like they can't breathe. This is terrifying. This is not something that people should be taking lightly. And I would rather be poor than dead. I would rather be poor than my mother be dead. I would rather be poor than my sisters or my brother be dead. I can't, this is not a choice. This is a simple choice to me. Also, her argument that the government should not be protecting people from risk of a deadly virus, that is absurd. The government should absolutely be protecting the people that they're there to represent. This is simple. The government should not be bailing out big corporations that should be able to handle their bills and then just forcing people who can't pay their rent back into dangerous positions. And think about all of like the essential workers right now who have never been paid enough. It is the responsibility of everyone who has the privilege to practice these mitigation tactics to protect them. So it's just, this is so frustrating for me. Like, she is spinning 30,000 deaths as some sort of a win.
And now they're also trying to spin this whole deal. Trump at this little news conference saying nationwide more than 850 counties or nearly 30% have reported no new cases in the last 7 days. I don't trust their numbers at all. But here's the flip side. 70% are. Go ahead, Greg. Go ahead real quick.
I'm going to say very quickly, echoing what Brooke is saying. The state should be taking care of its citizens, but they're breaking it down by county because many of those counties got a handful of people in them in those red states. And as you said, you know who's listening to Laura Ingraham? Those people in Nebraska, North and South Dakota, in those rural areas, and they're going to get sick. Now, they can listen. While we're looking at why is she smiling? She's smiling because she knows anything she says they're going to listen to. And they're going to listen to her to their sickness and their death. Meanwhile, the rest of us, to your point, hey, stay yourself in place. It's going to be a very different country by the time we come out of this, brother.
Absolutely, folks. A little bit earlier today, I had a chance to talk to former Surgeon General Dr. Regina Benjamin about coronavirus, about what should be happening. We want to thank the people at YouTube for facilitating this. Here's my conversation with her. Dr. Benjamin, glad to have you in Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Thanks for having me, Roland.
Let's get
Good
right
to talk to you again.
Indeed. Let's get right to it. The news of the day, Donald Trump has told the governors that it's up to them how they reopen their state. Duh, they already had those powers. But they're targeting May 1st. As someone who served as Surgeon General, you are a doctor, you've got your clinic there in Alabama. Is it wise for people to try to rush to reopen businesses and try to go back to business as usual when we still don't really have a firm grip on coronavirus in the United States?
Well, Roland, I kind of look at this whole thing. I have this analogy of hurricanes because I went through Hurricane Katrina, and people understand hurricanes. You follow the track. This hurricane got into the Gulf of Mexico. It was a Category 4, now it's Category 5. It was starting to hit land. I think it's made landfall, and it's starting to move by. And everybody knows that when you have a hurricane, the hurricane has an eye, and you don't go out in the storm, in the eye of the storm. You may have good weather, you may even have sunshine, but you know you're in the eye of the storm, and the next phase is going to come through. So we wait until the storm passes by. Once the storm is over, you go out and you assess the damage. This virus, we have to assess the damage to see how much damage was done once that storm is over.
But are we
and the way we
assessing?
do that, but the way we do that is we do that by seeing how much immunity is in the community, how many people have had it, and how much natural immunity. We need tests to do that. So we need to be testing, and we need to be building those tests, which we're trying to come up with so that we can see and have something to base it on to know whether or not we're safe to go out or not.
Well, and that to me, I keep going back to is still the craziest thing here. He's touting, we've done more tests than any other country. But if you look at it per capita, we have not. The fact that we represent 30% of all coronavirus cases in the world, and we're still having hotspots in South Dakota. You have the governor there who doesn't want to issue a shelter in place, but they're seeing more and more cases every single day. We're seeing how coronavirus is rampaging through nursing homes across this country. And when you keep asking the question, even Dr. Anthony Fauci makes the point that we have not reached critical mass when it comes to testing.
Roland, we can sit and we can argue the points about what should be done, shouldn't have been done, but I would like to try to save lives. And the way we save lives is that we need to take care of ourselves. What can we in our communities do to take care of ourselves? We have to start to do things. We're seeing that the number of cases, we've been talking about health disparities for the last 20 years. And so it's been known. What we didn't know was that people with these underlying conditions were going to get sicker. They're going to get sicker faster, and they were going to die more. And so we need to concentrate on what can we do to be resilient. What can we do right now to take care of our families and each other?
Well, and what is bothering me the most, again, look, I totally understand when we talk about the economic impact of coronavirus. Forget the stock market. I'm just talking about out there, just everyday people. Best Buy laying off furloughing 51,000 people. Numerous companies, small businesses, mid-sized, large. When you talk
about... Roland, if you think about that, and those are very tough things, and these are tough times, and what I hope that we can learn from all of this as a society, as we come out on the other end of this, is that it is tough, economic tough. It's hard when you don't know where your next paycheck is coming from. It's very difficult when you don't know how you're going to put food on the table. And if you do have a job and your kids are not in school now, what are you going to do for daycare? Those are very real things that we're dealing with. But you know what? Poor people have been dealing with this all along.
Right.
And I hope that people will have more empathy and understand what these single moms are going through every day and the challenges they have, the stresses they have in their lives. And we'll stop blaming the victims, and we will start putting in more public policies and things on the other end that will be much better for our society than what we've done in the past.
Well, the point that I've also been stating, that death is real. There's a video, Dr. Oz was on Fox News, and he was talking about the potential possibility of, reopening schools, and he makes this comment about, a 2 to 3% mortality rate. And then you hear people say, well, we lose X amount of people when it comes to the flu, so, we haven't lost that many people here. We're still talking about death. The other thing is that the problem...
Well, it depends on whether it's your death or my death, how important it is. But yes, it is real.
Right. I literally was just watching this this clip of Laura Ingraham saying, some people are fine with catching the virus. And I'm sitting here going, and I literally tweeted back, I said, well, you let me know the people at Fox News and Fox Business are cool with catching the virus. And the thing is that we still don't even know how this thing is moving and acting and responding. And so I've had numerous scientists and medical professionals on here. And
it's just like a hurricane. We don't know what it's going to do. We don't know how it's going to change. We have to be prepared for whichever way it changes. It's new. And you're right. We don't know how they're going to change, and we have to change with it. And the more information, the more data we get, the more we can put in, and our predictions can be much better. It's just like that hurricane tracker. When they go and fly into that storm, they get better data, and we know better. Once we get that, we're collecting data, we're constantly changing it. And as we get more information, we can make our plans and adjustments more reliably than just guessing.
Well, to that point right there, when you talk about the data piece, and I think that's critically important, you have the people now who are critical. Oh, the initial model said we were going to lose 100,000 or 240,000 people. Well, first of all, the initial model was also based upon if we didn't do mitigation. And so...
also those models is just like a hurricane model. The initial model, when it's way out there in the Atlantic somewhere, is totally different when it gets into the Gulf and you've got more data to make your model on. It's much more precise.
Yeah,
it changes.
I'm from Houston, and so I can tell you, okay, the hurricane is projected to veer towards New Orleans, and then all of a sudden, it's coming to Houston.
That's right. Because you got more information now. And what you based it on 2 weeks before was not the same. So that's what we're constantly going through these changes. The other thing is as I said, we don't go outside in the eye of the storm. We know the weather is good. We know it may even be sunshine, but you don't go out during the eye of a storm. You wait until it passes by.
Yeah,
And once it passes
because
by,
actually the eye ain't the problem. The tail is the problem.
it's worse.
And I think using that comparison, I think when we're talking about what's happening right here with coronavirus, if there is this rush to reopen, now all of a sudden, so just a perfect example. So where I do my show here, we do it with the Office of 50CAN, Education Reform Group. And I sit on the board of directors. And so we're still here, okay? I've got two people who work in this office, but they're working separately. Then I'll have, when we do the show, max 5 in the control room, really about 4 people, okay? I'm out here alone. My panelists are via Skype. So the people at 50CAN, they're not here. But if all of a sudden you bring 8 to 10 people back, some other offices, 20, 30, 50, 100, all of a sudden you don't have the same containment that you had when you had shelter in place. And yes, I get the economic loss and people being furloughed and not working, but the flip side is, which I got to think about, what happens if somebody contracts it? Now, what happens to them economically in their family? Hospital stay, things along those lines. And so all the people
What happens when people die?
Yes.
Because we're seeing deaths and they are dying. And so that's the main concern. And nobody wants to be the cause of deaths. And as knowing someone or having a loved one to die when it was preventable.
Absolutely. What would you advise in terms of messaging that should be specifically for African Americans? When the White House last week when they came out and they talked about, like, all of a sudden they were surprised by this disproportionate number of African Americans dying. And then Dr. Anthony Fauci stood up there and said that they didn't realize that asthma was an underlying condition. I had a doctor from Meharry on who was like, any black medical person could have told you that.
We've been talking about health disparities again for about 20 years. We even have a National Institute of Minority Health and Health Disparities at NIH that's doing that research because we know that these disparities exist. And what I have been saying and want to emphasize even more now is that when we first started talking about the coronavirus, we were talking about elderly and people with underlying health conditions. What people didn't realize, they thought, cancer, they thought HIV, some of those type conditions. But what they didn't think about was diabetes and high blood pressure, strokes, cardiovascular disease, somebody with a cardiac arrhythmia who may be working and doing very fine all day, but have an arrhythmia. I'm on the board of the American Heart Association, and we're putting $2.6 million into research around cardiovascular disease and health disparities. And so these things are there. We knew that these underlying conditions are more prevalent in our community. What we didn't know was that the coronavirus was going to be affecting us much faster, much more, and more people were going to die from it. That's where the big questions come in, is that how do we prevent people from getting it? And the first thing we can do is socially distance ourselves. And most of us are, but some are not. And so if I were going to give you any advice, the first thing is to wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. And then the social distancing really does protect you and your loved ones, and just stay as 6 feet apart from each other. Just don't spread it. Don't give it to someone else when you may not even know you had it yourself. And then you don't want to contract it. We have to protect each other.
Well, on that particular point there, what I keep saying, I literally told the White House this. I said, look, you need to have black folks, black and brown people out there as well talking about this, because the reality is African Americans, look, when it comes to who do we trust more? Do we trust an African American doctor? Do we trust a white doctor? Same thing in media. Where am I getting my information from? And I said, guys, look, I said Birx is fine, Fauci is fine, but to your point, you have a whole apparatus at NIH. You need to have, versus Trump running his mouth in these news conferences, put the experts up there to share the information so people can actually learn about what's going on with this.
And we have an opportunity here through you and others like you to give the good basic information to people, and hopefully they'll listen to you and look at you and watch your leadership and follow your leadership in doing these things. And we'll see, I'll see on social media where some group has had a party and they're talking about how great a time they're having. I heard it put best by a guy from New Orleans who had overcome the virus. He'd come off the ventilator. He says, you guys, you can either be socially distanced or you can be socially dead. Your choice. It's just that simple.
Right. It is just that simple. Final question for you, and we talk about models and things along those lines. I've been saying to friends of mine, I've been saying to folks who work for me, look, I don't think for a second this goes away in 3 months. To me, I said we should be preparing ourselves mentally that this is going to be from now until the end of the year. When you look at what is happening in New Orleans, where the mayor said, look, no major events for 2020. The folks at Essence really wanted to have Essence Festival. She wouldn't budge. They announced they cancel it. We'll be back in 2021. I just think that this thing is so uncertain. I think it makes sense to prepare yourself for the long haul. And then if it's shortened, great. But just to your point.
Roland, we got common sense.
Yeah.
Use the common sense.
Well, everybody ain't got common sense.
Yeah, but more of us have it than don't, I hope.
Right. Well, again, that's just sort of what I'm sort of, and using your point about the hurricane. Hey, even when that hurricane is gone, you might have flooding, you may have other things that actually happen. You just have to prepare yourself for that because it's there. And I just think this is something we've never seen before, never experienced before. Prepare yourself mentally for it.
After Katrina, we had never seen anything that big. We are still overcoming Katrina to this day.
Wow, that's a decade later.
It takes years to overcome. So to think that we'd be ready to be completely back to normal in 2 weeks is not common sense.
Absolutely. Dr. Regina Benjamin, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks a bunch. If folks want to get more information on your public policy institute, where can they get information from?
Basically, it's Gulf States Health Policy Center .org or BayouClinic.org.
Well, we certainly appreciate that, and hopefully those governors in those Gulf states are paying attention to what you and others are saying there, as opposed to some of the decisions that we're...
Actually, I've been working with our governor to put together an information hub. I'm working with a tech company called Yext, and they've done a wonderful job of pulling all the information together so that people can go and get good, solid health information. Everything that the health department has, the statistics is on a dashboard at that site. We call it covid19.alabama.gov. And basically, you can go there and get it yourself. Look for it yourself. You don't have to listen to anybody else give you their opinions of the statistics. They're there. There's also places to find jobs. In Alabama, we have 11,000 jobs that are available. You can apply online. We also have how to track your illness. If you think you're sick, where you can get your test sites. All of that's there so that people can take control of their own destiny, their own health by having information, because information is power.
All right. Dr. Benjamin, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, I certainly want to thank Dr. Benjamin for that. And just so you understand why we don't take these news conferences live, we just missed Dr. Fauci. We'll try to pull his clips up. Go to my iPad. Sam Stein just tweeted this. He's with the Daily Beast. He said, Trump just now touting 3.5 million tests completed is a weird boast because on March 4th, Mike Pence pledged 4 million tests by the end of that week. In fact, if you see the bottom of this, the White House promised 27 million coronavirus tests by the end of March, but just hit 1 million. So here we are in the middle of April, and they're saying, hey, 3.5 million tests, when y'all said we're going to have 4 at the end of 1 week. Let's talk about what's happening on the business side. Facebook is offering $100 million in cash grants and ad credits to help during the coronavirus pandemic. Up to 30,000 eligible small businesses in more than 30 countries where they operate will be able to receive the grant. Now, to be eligible to apply, you must be a for-profit company, have between 2 and 50 employees, have been in business for over a year, have experienced challenges from COVID-19, be in or near a location where Facebook operates. Now, they have, now if you go to facebook.com/business/boost/grants. You can see the information, and they have it based upon also cities, and I think it's like April 18th. If you're in New York City and Seattle, then there's another date for San Francisco, and then there's another date, April 22nd, for the rest of the cities. And so again, if you're a small business, put it back up. You can apply for these grants. The folks at Facebook sent this to me, facebook.com/business/boost/grants. Now, we've been talking about the PPP program, which Congress passed that $350 billion to help small businesses. The SBA, the Small Business Administration, announced today it is out of money for firms seeking loans. They said in a statement, quote, the SBA is currently unable to accept new applications for the Paycheck Protection Program based on available appropriations funding. Similarly, we're unable to enroll new PPD lenders at this time. The statement comes as lawmakers on Capitol Hill are wrangling over replenishing the program. Now, here's the other issue that we're dealing with. I'm going to talk about this with my next guest, John Hope Bryant, the CEO of Operation Hope. This was set up for small businesses. Politico, we talked about it yesterday, reported that Potbelly and Ruth Chris Steakhouse have received the maximum, remember, for this program of $10 million. That Potbelly and Ruth Chris Steakhouse, 2 chain restaurants, were able to qualify under this program. Does that sound like a small business to you? Let's bring in John Hope Bryant, with CEO of Operation Hope. John, you came on the show. You talked about what was important for African Americans. Obviously, this was a huge program, $350 billion. Congress is now realizing that that wasn't enough money.
Correct. Yeah, so first of all, Roland, thanks for continuing to be a voice for all of us. Which topic, and by the way, Dr. Regina Benjamin, who is a dear friend of mine, served on the Operation Hope board for years and is doing incredible work in the South. Is just a beacon and a light for our community, former Surgeon General. So obviously you're showing enormous great taste in having her on. Which thing do you want to cover first, Roland? Because, you know,
first and foremost, the fact that they announced today that the program has run out of money. They're not processing applications. They're not even pulling in more banks. I'll just give you an example. Northern Trust is my bank. I don't have a loan with any bank. That's who I bank with. They've applied for the program, haven't even heard back whether they got accepted. So, we can't even file because with this program, you got to have a bank to actually go through to file for it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just don't know, I don't know in which direction we should go first. I'm very rarely at a loss for words, but I both am sharing in your frustration about all that we're not getting, and I'm also frustrated that we didn't go get the thing that was right in front of us. That's the biggest giveaway program of the federal government ever. It was free money, effectively. I know because I helped design some part of the program, as you know, and we just weren't ready. Now, I guess I can say this on your show. I'll frame it because it's who could be watching. Was it a crap show? You don't want to say something else. Of course it was a crap show. The federal government stood up the 10th largest bank in America in 30 days, 20 days. Of course it's a mess. Ready, fire, aim, programs changing every 28 seconds. Nobody's happy. But, they did push out, 1 point whatever million loans. The 2/3 of the loans are $150,000 or less. I know I checked myself. I couldn't find out what the ethnic race was because they didn't put that on the form. I'm sure that was not an accident, but can't figure out what race it is. But at least 2/3 of the loans are below $150,000. And, the folks who work for Ruth Chris Steakhouse are going to be mostly working class people who you and I know. So I don't have a problem with that, actually. The problem I have is I'm convinced that we did not get a lion's share of these loans for a range of reasons that frustrate me. I'm not sure if it's even helpful to
Well, I think. Well, here's the deal. Here's what. First of all, look, like my brother, he works with the Houston Restaurant Association, the Texas Restaurant Association. He was sending me text messages because he was hearing from a number of their clients, and there were a number of people who did apply. I remember reading a story, and there was a guy, and I think it was out of Wisconsin, and he was on the phone line, trying to get information. And I think the story said that there were 17,500 people who were ahead of him. Here's what I think the folks in Congress should have learned from this. It's a whole lot of damn small businesses in the United States.
30 million.
And
a third of them are minority small businesses. Go ahead.
And I think what they also should have learned is that, look, you can't be talking about open back up, get back going, this whole deal like that, and not realizing that those small businesses, they are the economic engine of this country. And I think what happens a lot, John, is that when we talk about business in America, it's sort of like when we talk about mega churches, people love to go, oh, the mega churches, they cause all the problems, when mega churches represent only 4% of all churches in America. Because we think big means everybody works there, when in fact, that's just really not it. It's the aggregate of the small businesses that you got to pay attention to.
Yeah. And we now know that 40% of people who work on hourly wage, who look like us mostly, are now the secondary responders who are allowing for everybody else to stay at home. They're delivering packages. They are stocking shelves. They are working in hospitals. They are the backbone of this nation right now. And they look like us, and they're at a higher risk of infections because they're not socially distancing at home or at work. But that's another topic. Back to your topic. I think that there's going to be a lot more respect, regard, and I'm going to go on the limb here and say resources that are going to be coming the way of Black and Brown-owned businesses in coming weeks, months, and I'm going to argue years. I think COVID-19 has changed America, Roland. It may be the most transformational event, certainly since the Civil Rights Movement, for sure, or the Great Depression. I'm sorry. I'm going to go on Great Depression economically. It might be the most defining event since the Civil War. Never has the world ever seen, forget America, never has the world ever seen this kind of a stimulus package. The Great Recession of the mortgage crisis was a $187 billion bailout. People lost their mind over that amount of money. This is $2.5 trillion in one package, $1 trillion that went through the Fed window, and another $1 trillion that went through various orifices. I mean, it's $4.5 trillion. It's 40 times larger than anything the world's ever seen before, because we're the largest economy in the world, and it ain't over. There's going to be a need for another $1 trillion, in my opinion, and I believe that there'll be another shot for businesses to get access to this capital. I think you need at least $500 billion, maybe more like $800 billion to plug this hole. It's coming, Roland, because one thing's not going to happen is the government's not going to let America run out of money. America's not going to let American business fail. And it's not black folks get the benefit because we're going to connect with all other businesses. If this is a black crisis, it'd be a problem. If this is a low wage crisis, this would be a problem. The fact is, this is everybody's crisis, and so it's going to get fixed.
So what is your advice? What is your advice to lawmakers to ensure those who absolutely need are not, frankly, at the back of the line, at the front of the line? When you talk about scripture, when you say, frankly, the last will be first and the first will be last. Unfortunately, when you talk about money in America, the first is first, second, and third.
Agreed. And by the way, showing about this is class and not race, Roland, I got money. I intentionally did not have my for-profit apply because I was involved in some of the structural stuff, so I didn't want anybody to say I benefited. So my for-profit didn't apply. My nonprofit applied. My nonprofit got approved instantly because we had the back-end finance department, accounting department, our records that were straight, and we were able to rifle shoot just like everybody else, our records in, and get in line and bug everybody to death until it got done. But I have a whole division that does that. I have 10 friends who've called me, black and white, all educated, have accounting departments, all of them frustrated, all of them got their money. It was a crap show. They were frustrated. They had to call 8 times. They all got their money. a lot of folks that you and I care about did not get their money, in part because maybe they didn't try, they went late, they went last, the records weren't straight, whatever. You're going to get another shot at that apple here soon. Here's what I say to lawmakers: two things. One, this could have been avoided if we had the National Urban League, Church of God in Christ, First AME Church, the AME Church, the National Baptist Convention, Operation Hope. I'm probably missing a couple groups. Let's throw the NAACP in there, their offices. Deputize them as federal community trust officers. Federal community trust officers. And give them the right and the authority to take the folks in their pews and in their client stables, client account lists, and counsel them and coach them, because we already have trust in the requirements for these loans, and gateway them right into a priority list, to your point, with predefined group of banks or fintech firms or other firms approved CDFIs who put us at, to you say, the front of the line. And I'm going to say the second thing is, there should be a bucketed amount of money that's set aside in the next tranche, call it, I'm going to pick a number, $50 million, that is prioritized for African-American small businesses. We're dying at the highest rate in this crisis, and my guess is we're getting the lowest level of access to capital. And so those two things, if you did those two things, I think you'd see a transformational ramping up of liquidity and access to capital for our people. Just do those things. Pay the nonprofit groups to be the distribution channel, right? Don't ask them to do it for free. Deputize them so they have the authority to do it. Give them the training they need so that we're not giving people bad information, and give them the on-ramp to a defined group of lenders that put us at the front of the line for the application. That can be done in this next tranche, and I'm talking to folks at the White House that are open to that idea. I'm not talking to legislators, but you can certainly do that. Our friends in Congress on both sides of the aisle. So I think that's possible. And
right.
I'm going to go one step further, Roland. I'm actually pushing for a new Marshall Plan. I think this is the time to shove everything that we thought was important down a chute called reboot. Okay, and I'm talking about internships for all, apprenticeships for all, as much education as you can shove down people's throat. Black folks will never get reparations. It's a hard fight. But this could be reparations. Education for everybody, K through college. As long as you get a job, or you do something gainful, or do something like productive at the end of that degree, you don't have to pay it back, just like the PPP loan. It's an investment in America. It's not a handout. You're investing in America's people to reinvest in our society. It's not a handout. So I've got some other access to capital, using venture capital, publicly funded venture capital, heavily incentivized private capital for this purpose as well, to back a whole network of local enterprises that can become employers in our neighborhood that aren't rap stars. We got to be experts in something other than the arts, entertainment, and professional sports. That's not enough bandwidth to employ 40 million black people. I just love it. It's fantastic. Chris Tucker and Tip and all my friends, I love they're doing it. Oprah, I love you. But they can't employ tens of thousands of people. We need to back businesses, and I think call centers in our... But, Roland, I think... So I've answered your question. I over-answered your question.
I got you.
But I also think there's an opportunity for black folks, if you can get beyond the surviving mentality and get to a thriving mentality and a winning mentality and stop being angry, because anger doesn't pay a bill, and think like you think, which is to respond, not react. We're going to get through this, because if God wanted to kill us, we'd be dead. This is a reset, not a reboot, societally. We'll get on the other side of this, even with all the pain. What are you going to do in 4 months? On the other side of this, 6 months, whatever the number is, it'll be this year. And what are you going to do? Because the world's going to be different. And opportunities, Roland, please, your people need to hear me, will be everywhere. While I'm sitting here, I just got an email from somebody trying to sell me something that I've always wanted at half price. If I wanted to buy this 2 months ago, it'd have been full value. They're now trying to give it away to me. There's going to be a discount on stocks, a discount on real estate. I'm gonna tell you a real quick story. I was at Ambassador Young's house during the last crisis, and he sends his love to you, by the way, Roland. And his gardener, black guy, I said, man, how you doing in the subprime crisis? You a lot of pain? He owned a little business. And he said, no, I'm good. I was poor before this crisis. So he said, I'm broke before this crisis. I'll be broke after this crisis. It's my rich white friends that want to kill themselves because they lost all their money. And what he was saying was that there's been a recalibration, and the wealthy folks were brought down to his level. Well, shoot, he's used to hustle. So now he's got an opportunity because there was a bifurcation on class. They were getting opportunities he wasn't. Now he's like, look, we all can hustle together to get this new opportunity. That's what I want people thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just get stuck on the frustration, because there's going to be a lift back up here, and there'll be two economies. This one, the L, that leads to recession, and this one, the soft U, that leads to recovery. I want us riding on this railroad, not on this railroad. They're going to both happen at the same time.
I got my panelists. I'm going to each one of them for one question. I will start with Greg Carr.
I think you've answered everything that I would have asked, Roland, when you asked about what policymakers can do. I am concerned about one of kind of soft underbellies in our community, particularly these very small businesses. You know, how can folks move very quickly to get, as you say, their paperwork in order so that they can go through that very clean chute? I'm sure people are scrambling now, Brother John.
Yeah, call me. This is what frustrates me. Like, I've been saying this to my people for Roland knows, 6 weeks now. Call Operation Hope. Services are free. We'll help walk you through this. We've gotten some calls, but when did my website crash? When Gayle King put me on CBS This Morning, mainstream audience, and made the same offer, my website crashed, my phones exploded, people saying, sign me up. I need folks who look like me to use our services. Call me, and I will, not me personally, but call Operation Hope. We will walk you through this process. I'm in 22 states. Services are free. So, yeah, I'm with you 100%. But there's a lot of historic reasons why we don't trust government. We don't trust banks. I get it. Freedmen's Bank, I get it. We got to get over all that stuff because the money will run out while we're sitting here contemplating.
Right.
It did run out, actually.
Reese.
So I've seen reports about how this administration has given out no bid contracts into one specific company, over $100 million contract for N95 masks, and it's bankrupt. There's a huge opportunity, as you said here, outside of even the loan aspect and the grants and stuff that were available in terms of government contracting. Are you involved, or do you know of any resources that can help minority Black-owned businesses, Black woman-owned businesses get in on this federal contracting, contracts that are being put out there? Because it does seem like we do get left behind, even though there's supposedly all these, these set-asides for us and all these quotas, which the administration is trying to do away with in the meantime. How can we be a part of that, or make sure that we're not left a part of that?
The lady's question is dead on right. And I'm not going to give you an answer you like. I think that all the structure and the programs and those are great and people mean well. But in a crisis like this, the urgent crowds out the important, and people rely on their relationships. So somebody in the government, not meaning to discriminate against you and me at all, trying to solve a problem, is going to reach out to whom? Their friends. Whoever called, somebody they know, somebody they've known for 10 years, went to school with, I don't know. But somebody who they hooked up with, or somebody knows somebody, hey, I can get you these masks. Oh, really? Tell me about that. That's who's going to get this deal. So you're right. And you will find out about this when the dust settles. I want you to be part of the dust settling. Okay? So you've got to get a hold of Nicole Frazier at the White House, who is special assistant to the president for African American Affairs. She's actually a nice person. You got to get a hold of Jerron Smith. Roland knows all these people. And in fact, Ron's going to come on Roland's show. He's actually a good brother. I found him to be an honest broker. We don't talk politics. We only talk about these issues. And he respects the fact that I don't want to talk politics about that situation. And He's an expert in Qualified Opportunity Zones. He's an expert in CRA, Community Investment Act, and he wants to get you opportunity. You got to get to know these people. You got to get to know Chris Pinkerton at the White House. You got to get to know people running the SBA, the people running these different agencies, because life's about relationships. And so, okay, you don't have time to get to know them right now? Fine. Send them a soft letter. Send them an email. Let them know who you are. Let them know you're not selling them something right now. Here's what your company does. Here's what you're offering. You'd like to have 10 minutes on the phone with them. Folks don't have time right now for an hour conversation. 5-10 minutes just to orient them to what you're doing so that when the opportunity comes around that you're available, and let them know you're a minority-owned business. Play that card. And copy me, copy Roland. When you send these notes, Roland will give you my information. Roland, you could probably get them on this next call with the White House for Black leadership. The first call we did was 4,000 people. They'd never done it in the history of the White House, of this White House. And they were nervous a few weeks ago when they did this, but it worked out really well. And no one got political on either side. And we dealt with the business. You need to be on that call or have somebody on that call that you deputize from your community who raises intelligently, thoughtfully, not emotionally, the issue you just raised, and let them respond to it. So I think that this is my suggestion, is you got to insert yourself in the process in a way in which that's effective, which means I want you to respond to issues, not react to them. If we react to this and get emotional, we're done. If we get angry, start cursing people out, and nobody got time for that right now. Nobody cares, actually. You've got to insert yourself into the flow of literally billions and arguably hundreds of billions of dollars in the next 90 to 120 days. It'll probably last all of this year, but most of this money will flow in the next 4 months. Roland, you agree or disagree?
No, I agree. Absolutely. I think especially I've been telling people, prepare yourself mentally that we're going to be dealing with this to the end of the year. It's not going to just go away in 60 or 90 days, even though some people want to wish it to go away. Brooke Thomas, final question from you for John Hope.
And by the way, go to your member of Congress, get them to write you a letter as well. Congress has a lot of sway right now. Sorry about that, Roland.
Go ahead, Brooke.
Yeah, I just have a question. It may be a little bit of a reiteration, but I'm curious as to what is the concern or question that you're getting the most. You mentioned your website crashing after the CTM appearance. What is something that is representing itself as like the biggest concern, or something that you're getting so often? Because often other people have that same question or concern.
Yeah, great question. So just so happens I have the results here of my call center, of the call-in. So this was before Gayle King's show. This is our people in 1 month. Typically what would happen is people would call in, they had one request. I want to be part of your 700 credit score program, get my credit score up. I want to become your home-owned program. I want to be part of your small business program. It wasn't 2 or 3 services, they just went one. Here's what we got. So think about 100, a ranking of 100 now. You'll think my math is screwy, but what this means is that the same person was asking for 5 things. Okay. 59% wanted assistance with the SBA process. They were confused. 47% wanted assistance with federal programs, like the accelerated unemployment insurance, like the earned income tax credit, which you can still get, and you need to apply for today as another $3,000 to $10,000 in your pocket that, again, we don't apply for. Go get your money. It's nothing to do with COVID. Go get your $3,000 to $10,000. Like the check that should be hitting your mailbox this week or next, and I can tell you about that, pretty much tell you how much money you get. But even if you didn't file a tax return, you get that money. But you've got to go into the IRS website and let them know where to send your money. Otherwise, you won't get it. So 47% of that. 33% wanted help restructuring a home mortgage. 33% wanted help with financial recovery planning. This is really smart. 38% wanted help with negotiating with their creditors. And 23% wanted help with student loan deferrals. And then 26% wanted help with credit counseling. So the lowest number here, it was my highest number a month ago. Credit counseling, credit score assistance, that was my highest ask. It was singular. Now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 asks by the same person who had members of their family with multiple needs. Mainstream America, Gayle King's show, they wanted help with the federal loan program and mostly restructuring their finances. So the problem has now become mainstream. I'm predicting that what I was doing for Minority America, now is going to apply to 80% of America in the next 2 to 3 months.
John Hope Bryant, always a pleasure. Tell folks where the website, where they can get more information to log on right now.
Yeah, operationhope.org, Hope Inside Disaster, COVID-19.org. All services are free, or you can call 888. I forget my toll-free number.
Take your time. Take your time to find it.
It's on my. Okay, I'll find it for you. It is 888-388-HOPE. 888-388-HOPE, and we have an app coming out next week that'll be on the on all your platforms. That's called Hope in Hand, Hope Mobile. You'll be able to do all this stuff right from your app as of next week. Go get your money that's still there on the individual assistance program. Make sure the IRS knows where to give you your money. If you're a senior citizen, you still get the money. If you're a documented alien, you get the money. There's a lot of categories, and if you have children, you get another check. If you have a spouse working in the house, you get another check. Make sure they give you all of your money from that program, and go get your EITC, Earned Income Tax Credit. Anybody making less than $54,000 a year, most of us, that's another check, and it's 3 years retroactive.
And that's why Roland Martin Unfiltered matters, giving you this information directly, because frankly, it's not. John don't get this much time on the major networks. But that's why we got to walk ourselves through information is indeed power. John Hope Bryant, we appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot.
Love you, man.
I appreciate it, sir. Thank you so very much. A lot of you saw this clip that was being spread around the internet. Check this out. All right, guys. Y'all should have been ready in the control room. Come on. Come on. Y'all should have been ready. Okay, let me be real clear. Y'all were in there talking and now focus don't work. Come on, play the clip.
Well, when we came up with our valuation, we took last month's sales
Y'all
and we
should have been
multiplied it by 12.
focused.
Like if we didn't grow at all, we would make 115 for the next 12 months.
Kim?
So we actually ended up with a 6.9 million valuation, but we brought it down to 4 million.
We really want
Hey, I can work a spreadsheet too.
We'll need a lot of money, so we'll probably have to raise again.
Yes, which is why I need 20% today.
And you're getting a shark.
400,000 for 20%. I'm not going to change that.
What are you going to do?
Sorry, Robert.
Oh!
Can't take that.
We cannot take that.
I respect that.
Good for you.
I have to say,
I didn't see that coming.
I'm out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, guys.
appreciate it.
Offers.
That's confident in your guts.
Wow, how about that?
I can't believe they didn't take it.
I can't either.
Well, Kim and Tim Lewis, they were like, nah, we'll pass. So how are they doing right now? They join us right now. How y'all doing?
All right.
Great.
Thank you so much for having us, Mr. Martin. This
One of
is
the
so
reasons,
awesome.
one of the reasons I wanted to have y'all on, not only because I saw that clip, because also while we're in the middle of this whole coronavirus issue, it's impacting businesses, people's ability to raise money, to be able to make money. But what really stood out there is that, and I think they were shocked that y'all wouldn't just give up 20% of equity. I mean, that's real. I mean, that's for $400,000. How did that decision turn out?
That was the best decision we could have made. We wanted to be honest and true. We know some people go on the show and they say they'll take a deal and then on the back end they don't. But that's just not who we are. We like to be really transparent and honest. And so we didn't take the deal. And now today we ended up doing a deal with the CEO of LinkedIn for $1.2 million shortly after the show aired for a valuation of about $12 million. And so that was based on our sales last year. But our sales up until maybe March of last year. But we did about $5.5 million in revenue last year. So I think we're far above the $12 million valuation.
Wow. So they were offering $400,000 for 20% equity, and you later did a deal for $1.2 million for the same 20%?
For less, for 10%.
10%.
Wow. So 3 times more money for half of the equity you were gonna give up.
Yeah.
And they've actually we've grown so much since then. We 5x since we even made that valuation when it comes to revenue.
Yeah.
So they've already made their investment back, and we're still growing. So it was really one of the best decisions we made in our life. Props to my wife. We did all the homework, all the background. We knew what our value was going in, and we stood to that. You know, we stuck by what we knew was true about us and our company and what we believed in, and it was us at the end of the day. We believed in ourselves to grow our company and be successful, and they didn't see that as much as they should have on Shark Tank. But luckily, we're gonna keep going.
It's all love from sharks, though.
Well, I think, but here's the deal, though. I mean, look, the way a lot of these folks work is to give less money to get more equity because they hope that the company is frankly desperate for the cash, and then you're getting one of the sharks. That's if you don't believe in yourself and your plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we actually, the year prior to the episode airing, we went from about 0 to $1 million in sales. And then we 5X that in the next year, and we're going to do more than that this year. So we knew that we were growing. We knew that we had that upwards trajectory.
Yeah.
What we really needed was advice and support and education and knowledge about how to navigate, a rapidly scaling startup. And that's why we really wanted a shark on our team. But we knew that, we could figure it out if we're going to have to give up 20% of our business.
And
it wasn't in the plan.
For us, we had a BATNA, a walkaway numbers essentially, and it was 15% of the business because we knew at some point we may have to raise again, and we just didn't want to that time that we raised where we have a minority stake in the company. And so we negotiated with Robert, but he wouldn't negotiate. He also said he didn't know anything about the market, and so we were like, okay, well then maybe this just isn't the ideal partnership.
One of the things that I've interviewed a number of entrepreneurs, and when people go out in the space to raising money, it's for some people it's a crapshoot. So some people it turns out well, others not. I remember talking to one brother who had a hair care company, and he actually and it got lots of attention. It's a well-known company, but he said he actually regretted raising the amount of money because when it came down to control, and then when it came down to equity. And so, how do you advise people to walk through that? Because others again might see $400,000 or $500,000 and $1 million and say, that means that I don't have to sit here and just starve myself and paying my employees versus paying myself. But on the back end, they may be really screwing themselves out of millions, to be honest.
So I think there are two sides to every coin. I think as long as you have a good strategy and you are deep into the data, and you feel like this is a good, you usually have a gut feeling like this is a good or bad decision. Without that $1 million, we wouldn't have been able to transition all of our staff from contractors to full-time employees. Because it's not just, if someone makes $60,000 a year, as an employer, I'm paying an additional like $5,000 a month for their salary, but then an additional $1,000 in expenses when it comes to employment insurance, payroll taxes, health insurance, dental, all of that, right? And so we wouldn't have been able to have that, plus invest in inventory before all this madness with the virus happened, plus just have like an established business that has more security if we hadn't raised that money. Now, I will say you have more control over your company and the direction of it when you don't have investors, and that's great. But if you're just starting out, there's a lot you don't know, and you may not even make it to that point. You may not make it past a couple of years without that kind of investment. So I think it's just really it's different for everyone. For us, we've taken an investment for $1.2 million. I thought I wanted to raise again, and so I even kind of had preliminary conversations with investors because we did 5X our revenue. And so if you are raising venture capital, you want to raise it on the heels of 500% return on investment. And we were having conversations, and some people didn't see the vision, And so for me, I'm just like, well, I'm not going to devalue my company just so I can get a check, right? We're stable enough to continue to grow and to grow profitably. And I know that Black women, minorities get less than a couple percent of venture capital, period. And Black women get like less than 0.02% or something crazy. So for me, I'd recommend for us that we just build bomb companies making cash hand over fist, because when we do that, then people will look at that, right? They don't understand our products because they're not Black. People with money are not Black. But when they see dollar signs, then they start writing checks.
Yeah, that's the real key right there. Is we found that investors really want to talk to you when you actually don't need them. When you're being successful and you're growing and you're scaling, that's when they really want to get on your side, right? So the best thing you can do is, take care of yourself and build your company in the best way you can. And then hopefully someone will share that vision and want to help out.
And bootstrap yourself the way we got an investor from Arlen from Backstage Capital. She's a Black woman running a fund that invests in underrepresented founders, and we love her for it. She was our first check.
First money in. We love Arlen.
$25,000, and it came after we had bootstrapped so much and failed for a few years in a row. And her check came right when we knew exactly what to do with it, and it helped us move into our first manufacturing facility, and buy new labels and pivot the business. And that was the year that we made $1 million. But effectively, we bootstrapped most of the way because $25,000 is at the time meant so much, but we had spent a lot of our own money getting to that point.
All right, got questions from our panel. Reese, you're first.
I think that first of all, I love you guys' story because I think that just in general, Black entrepreneurs are undervalued, and knowing when to walk away is a huge takeaway. How is this environment affecting or impacting your business? I know it sounded like you said that you have extra inventory, or you scaled up in your inventory prior to coronavirus. Have you started to, or have you both started to think about how your business model is going to change in light of coronavirus?
Absolutely. So there are a few different ways coronavirus has had an effect on our business. Some of them positive, and some of them negative. So to start out, when it comes to taking care of our people, we already made sure that, as like Kim said, we were able to transition all of our staff from contractors to full-time last year with our first investment. And right away, we offered everyone full benefits, and we do double minimum wage for just our starting employees. And almost everyone makes above inventory average at every level. Industry average at every level of the business.
So $17 an hour is where we start.
Is where we start with full benefits. And so we wanted to make sure that first and foremost, we took care of our people. So we decided to make sure that everyone gets paid if we have to shut down. We have a program where if you have to go out for 2 weeks, or if you're sick, or if you're with someone who's sick, or you have to take care of people who are stuck at home, we allow for you to take that time off. We're running, a very limited crew just to make sure that we're able to kind of keep basic functioning of the business. So we put those things in place. But prior to COVID becoming a huge issue, we were already on the path towards profitability. And so what happened was we were in a great position to kind of take advantage of some of the other benefits that have happened. With people being at home right now, a lot more people are shopping online that have never shopped online before. E-commerce is really growing for us with a lot of new customers, a lot of new access to people who are on home, on social media, things like that. So there's some negative things for sure, especially when it comes to our supply chain as well. But we feel like we're prepared because we've been working on the problems in our business for months now.
In the supply chain, what's going on there? So we make our products on the west side of Chicago. So it's not like we're ordering materials that have been made in China and then selling them here in the United States. We're making everything, but raw materials do still come from throughout the world. And so, or like some packaging pieces, right? Yeah. And if those people are not at their jobs working, then it's harder for us to get the materials to make a shampoo, to make, a body butter.
Or a hand sanitizer, things like that.
Yeah.
The whole kind of supply chain is strained right now. So we've made sure to be as transparent as we can with our customers that things might take longer, but you're still going to get high quality products and services that we continue to offer.
And we have 20 employees, and 10 of them are already working remotely. So our online team was already all over the country working. So
already at home.
Yes, sorry.
Which is great.
So they didn't affect us in that way. And then we have about 10 people who operate our manufacturing facility, and 6 of them have been coming in, and 2 are at home with their kids. We just have babies, and the other 2 are at home because of the virus, but they don't have it. They're just kind of like, they were nervous about coming in. And the people who are coming in, we're offered a $50 a day bonus for employees for the 30-day period. So they're getting a bonus of $1,000 for coming in.
As like hazard pay.
Yeah.
All right, Brooke, your question, Brooke.
Yeah, I want to take it back to Shark Tank just really quickly, because I do love that you came in, you were not going to give up more than 15%. Very strong and stuck to that. But we're human, and oftentimes, like when you make a big decision and a hard decision like that, it's almost impossible not to waver a little bit. So I'm wondering, what your thought process was, your feelings right after you made that decision and you bet on yourself, and obviously you were right. But were you worried a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, first of all, that's the scariest thing I've ever done in my life is be on Shark Tank, because you're in the room with a couple $1 billion in net worth, right? And you have been practicing.
And all of America is watching, right? There's some like 20 million people watch that show. So.
In the first 30 seconds, they don't edit. So if you flub it, you just, you're messed up, right? And so, and then all the pics on you, there's 30 cameras. And so I was like, sweating bullets like down my back, and like I was just so nervous. And then the decision, right? After we made the decision, it was like, should we have said yes? And then never crossed our. We talked about it, but we never was like, oh yeah, we should have. We were like, no, we made the right decision. Like, whether or not this airs, because you don't know if it's gonna air when you film. It was just like, this is the best thing for us. We still have to go home and run a real business. This is not a TV business. This is not for fun. This is how we eat. And so after I realized that, I was just like, you know what? That was the best thing we could have done.
I love that.
Hey, Carr, final question.
Oh, very quickly, shout out to Chicago. Y'all up there with Mr. Johnson and them used to have their products in Johnson Corporation. So we know black people know how to make money, particularly around here. Oh, and parenthetically, since Negroes is stuck at home with no clippers, y'all might want to expand into the male ethnic. Some dudes might be looking how to get them curls in the next 6 months.
Absolutely.
But,
I use curl mix. I use it on both of my boys. Like, we have a huge contingent of men who love our products.
This is what I'm talking about, brother. Well, here's another one. I'm looking on a website right now, brother. But, y'all might not know, today is Emancipation Day in D.C., 1862, compensated emancipation. But I guess my question, kind of in line with what Brooke just asked in terms of that moment at Shark Tank, what message do you have to folks in our community who want to bet on themselves, who have a sense of their abilities? I love what you said, Tim. I mean, we're looking for some advice, some guidance, but if you don't give it to us, we'll figure it out. What message do you have for these folks out here who want to get into business, but who may be wavering in terms of their ability or to see themselves as the expert in the room, as somebody who's willing to do that work so that they can become masters of their future?
Yeah. So the biggest thing is, like, we found that the internet is the great equalizer when it comes to business. Like, you could start a business tomorrow online with little to no input. All you really need to do is find a market to serve and then find out their pain points and then try to solve those problems. At the end of the day, an entrepreneur is a problem solver. But if you need resources like us, we needed resources. We needed knowledge about how to get these things done. We sought out a network of already successful Black entrepreneurs. So I've got to give a huge shout out to Traffic Sales and Profit, the community, and Lamar Tyler, who has been one of our mentors, and we're part of their mastermind group as well. So I think it's the largest mastermind, Black mastermind in the world when it comes to small businesses. And so
with founders who are making $5 million or more, like that's the other thing. It's like we can find a bunch of like small Black businesses, but how many of us are making millions? And it's at least 5 to 10 people in the group making millions of dollars. So that was something else that helped us. But we read, right? Yeah. Like, if you feel like I don't know anybody who's an entrepreneur, I didn't go to college, that's okay, that's fine. You don't have to. Read a few books. You got Kindle, you got Amazon, pay for a couple $100 course on Facebook or whatever, or something. You see the ads, you can teach yourself. And that's what we've done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you.
All right, folks. So, look, we certainly appreciate y'all being on the show. Thank you so very much. Great information there. Hopefully people will be inspired and learn from that. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having us.
All right, y'all take care. Folks, got to go to a break. We come back, last couple of stories, and then don't forget, in about 7 minutes, we go live concert with Gerald Albright. Oh, a jam at G's place. All right, you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Back in a moment. You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. If you want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered, be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. All right, so a lot of y'all are always asking me about some of the pocket squares that I wear. Now, Robert don't have one on. Now, I don't particularly like the white pocket squares. I don't like even the silk ones. And so I was reading GQ magazine a number of years ago, and I saw this guy who had this pocket square here, and it looks like a flower. This is called a shibori pocket square. This is how the Japanese manipulate the fabric to create this sort of flower effect. So I'm going to take it out and then place it in my hand so you see what it looks like. And I said, man, this is pretty cool. And so I tracked down, it took me a year to find a company that did it. And so they make these about 47 different colors. And so I love them because, again, as men, we don't have many accessories to wear. So we don't have many options. And so this is really a pretty cool pocket square. Now, what I love about this here is you saw when it's in the pocket, you know, it gives you that flower effect like that. But if I wanted to also, unlike other, because if I flip it and turn it over, it actually gives me a different type of texture. And so therefore it gives me a different look. So there you go. So if you actually want to get one of these shibori pocket squares, we have them in 47 different colors. All you got to do is go to RolandSMartin.com/pocket squares. So it's RolandSMartin.com/pocket squares. All you got to do is go to my website and you can actually get this. Now, for those of you who are members of our Bring the Funk fan club, there's a discount for you to get our pocket squares. That's why you also got to be a part of our Bring the Funk fan club. And so that's what we want you to do. And so it's pretty cool. So if you want to jazz your look up, you can do that. In addition, y'all see me with some of the feather pocket squares. My sister, who's a designer, she actually makes these. They're all custom made. So when you also go to the website, you can also order one of the customized feather pocket squares right there at RolandSMartin.com/pocket squares. So please do so. And of course, that goes to support the show. And again, if you're a Bring the Funk fan club member, you get a discount. This is why you should join the fan club. All right, folks. First of all, great conversation there with the folks at Curl Mix. Certainly made a heck of a lot of sense right there. Final comments here with our panel. We're going to talk about the proposal put forth by Senator Kamala Harris, but I got to ask y'all about this here. Today, Virginia Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax is calling on the district attorney to investigate the claims by a woman named Meredith Watson, who says Fairfax raped her in a frat house when they were in college. Now, he has repeatedly denied the claim and the claims of a sexual assault from another woman named Vanessa Tyson. He says both were consensual. Now, he sent out a series of tweets today. He said, quote, to publicly accuse someone of a crime and then not want an investigation shows that the people involved are engaging in a political hit job. Gayle King and Nancy Erica Smith have known since at least July 9th, 2019, that Meredith Watson fabricated her allegation of rape and sexual assault at Duke University in 2000. An eyewitness, Damian Blue, was there and has told many people, including a CBS attorney, she lied. Gayle King, CBS This Morning, and CBS News have never done a follow-up story on these false allegations in over a year because they know they aired vicious lies to millions of people. Now, he sent out several other tweets, but to name, this is the first time that name has come out. And the Washington Post did a story where Fairfax supplied them his phone records where he showed calls. The moment these allegations dropped, a series of calls back and forth to Damian Blue. Reese, I'm going to first start with you. What do you make of Fairfax putting this out there and the fact that Meredith Watson or attorney, they've never said, in fact, he's challenged them to comment on this, and they've never even said yay or nay whether another person was present?
Well, I mean, I think that there's a big difference between calling for a criminal investigation, which is, I believe what you said, he's referring this to a district attorney.
Well, yeah, no. So here's the deal: the attorneys for both women, they have said they'll testify in an impeachment hearing. The DAs in both cities, and they are both black women, where these alleged incidents took place, both have said if a complaint is filed, they will investigate. Watson and the other woman, Vanessa Tyson, neither of them have actually filed the complaint. So he's saying, wait a minute, if you got two black female DAs who say that they will investigate, why won't you file a complaint, but you'll testify openly in an impeachment hearing? Go ahead.
Well, I personally will not impugn these women for not filing a criminal complaint, which the burden of proof is much higher. It's going to be, when these investigations happen, it's an ongoing investigation. It's not a transparent thing. So I want to impugn them because, Justin Fairfax doesn't want to be impugned for not wanting to submit to an impeachment hearing or any kind of hearings. As far as I know, I could be wrong. You can correct me on that. So I think that moving it into a criminal matter where it's much harder to prove, it's at this point, I hate to put it as a he say, she say. This person that he presents as a witness is one person who would testify, and I'm sure these women would testify to the people that they told about contemporaneously about these experiences as they alleged have occurred. So I don't look at it as anything sinister because a lot of women don't want to go through the trauma of a rape complaint, of a criminal complaint. And Justin Fairfax, to my knowledge, doesn't want to go through any kind of impeachment hearings or ethics hearings that would be public and transparent.
But here's the question, Brooke. Here's the question. You have allegations being made. You have innocent until proven guilty. And then you have a situation here where he says, this wasn't a case where he says, this is somebody who I told afterwards. He says this person was actually there. Now, the question now is, if you're Watson or her attorney, do you address this or not?
Well, it looks like, not is what they're going with. But I do want to double back on what Reese just said. I'm with that. We have to stop using the idea that a woman with an allegation not wanting to go through the process of filing an allegation in criminal court, knowing what happens to a lot of actual victims of sexual assault and rape when they file reports. It's no surprise that not all women want to go through that process. So that's got to stop being used as an excuse as to why they must be lying. And it almost seems like that's what's being implied in his kind of push to them to do that. And I can't say what happened. I wasn't there, but I guess it seems like neither of them want to go through with the process that the other one is comfortable with, but it's not owed to him outside of, what our criminal courtrooms say, that it has to be handled his way.
Right.
Well, so Greg, so here's what we're dealing with here. On their end, their attorneys have said they will participate in an impeachment hearing. He's saying, wait a minute, if you're willing to openly testify in an impeachment hearing, why not file a complaint where DAs actually, because they are still, the statute of limitations hasn't expired. So the DAs can actually still pursue it. You look at the case, in the case of Bill Cosby, there was no physical evidence in the case of Bill Cosby. Cosby was convicted based upon testimony.
Yeah, black people in this country have consistently demonstrated, at least in the modern era, a collective immaturity when it comes to discussing these kind of issues. I'm thinking about Ida Wells writing in the 1890s, in 1900 and 1910, A Red Record, Mob Rule in New Orleans, Lynch Law in all its phases. And Ida Wells talks about the electric mix of violence that comes around allegations of rape, and that it was the rape of white women, in fact, that animated much of the racial terrorism loosed against black women and men in the South during the time that she pioneered, really, anti-lynching movement. Fast forward to now. I think it's pretty clear that Justin Fairfax was a victim of a political hit job by Ralph Northern and his lieutenants, separate of any whatever happened in, as I said, Massachusetts and North Carolina, not respectively. And so that's one set of issues. It's a political issue. Justin Fairfax is fighting for his political life because there is no court that is equitable in the court of public opinion. That's why when you tag Gayle King and CBS and all these other folks, you are calling them out because they are not fact fires. They are not triers of fact. They are public figures who are masquerading as news anchors and news corporations. So if they are indeed about the truth, then he's offering them to continue to pursue this story. Now, that's one set of, that's two sets. Now you've got public figures. Now let's get to the point. I agree wholeheartedly with my, my fellow panelists. No person, certainly no woman, certainly no black woman, should be accused of lying if she or he or whoever, they are reticent to testify in public about a case of violence, particularly sexual violence. That having been said, for the accusants to say that they are willing to subject themselves to that type of scrutiny and public scrutiny for the purposes of an impeachment trial seems to me to indicate that there may be other motives other than finding the truth, because there will be no diminished level of scrutiny in a public impeachment trial than there would be in a criminal or civil account. So finally, I'll just say this. When you live in a country where race is always at the center of everything, including how gender is lived and class is lived, then you got to ask yourself a question. What do you do in a situation where you have, as far as we're concerned in our journey in this place, as perfect a set of conditions for finding the truth as possible? You've got two black women in charge of the fact-finding inquiry who have said, we are here. And if the answer to that is there is no perfect truth, then I would have to say in the case of Justin Fairfax, he should continue to demand that the truth come out. And those of us who are a little bit more mature about trying to think our way through this should be able to listen to that.
Any, go ahead.
I'm not passing judgment on whether or not these allegations are true. I don't have enough information to know whether that's the truth or not. But what I will say in defense of rape victims are allowed to determine what restorative justice looks like for them. For some rape victims, restorative justice is not a criminal complaint. Certainly would not be a criminal acquittal. So I do not pass judgment on these women if their allegations are true and what their restorative justice looks like is a public hearing, is a transparent hearing, then I do not pass judgment on them.
So
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No. So that's just my whole point. I don't think that it's appropriate to dictate to a rape victim what their restorative justice looks like. I don't think it's appropriate to dictate that they receive justice strictly through the criminal justice system.
So I ask this question then to all three of you. Is it appropriate for them to dictate to him? Because what they've said is we will only participate in an impeachment inquiry.
Right.
It is appropriate for them to dictate how they want to handle this. Absolutely. Nothing has happened to him besides what is being said. And he has the right to defend himself. And none of us can sit here and say who's telling the truth or who's lying. But I do know that nothing in that tweet is proof that these women are lying.
So here's the question.
So I don't know what.
So here's the question. First of all, you say nothing has happened to him. Yeah, he's still lieutenant governor. He has lost.
But of the two outcomes of the two.
No. That's what I'm saying.
That both of them are arguing about. Yes.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm walking through. He has. First of all, there has been no outcome because there's been no impeachment hearing and there's been no criminal investigation. So all you have right now are allegations made by these two women, denials by him. They're saying we want a hearing to be able to. We want a hearing to take place for us to be able to air our grievances. They're saying we will participate in an impeachment inquiry. He's saying, wait a minute, if you say this happened and you got two DAs who said we will investigate, file a complaint, and he said I got no problem participating in criminal inquiry. Now, so we step back and say, okay, 2 complaints by them, complaint by him. So then the question is, do they get the benefit of the doubt? Does he get the benefit of the doubt? Or is it just them?
Well, at the end of the day, it's like you said, Roland, it's innocent until proven guilty. Unfortunately, for both parties, there will be no final judgment on it, whether it's the jury of public opinion, in which these women haven't fared that much better than Justin Fairfax, and they don't have the benefit of being an elected official in the state of Virginia. They have been, dragged through the mud. He's been dragged through the mud as well. And so at the end of the day, it's going to just be an impasse. To me, it seems like he's picking the story back up. I don't know if there's something else that precipitated his tweet or this story, but
the reason his whole deal is, first of all, here's a piece. There are people who are announcing first of all, understand, there are people who are announcing they want to run for governor. Right. In Virginia, the governor can only serve for 1 term. The moment he was elected lieutenant governor, he was the prohibitive favorite to run for governor. Right. So his deal is, wait a minute. And here's a piece. I've said it before. Do I know Justin? Yeah. Is he in Alpha? Yes. Is he in the Boulay? Yes. I've actually had him on the show. What he said was his deal is, wait a minute. What am I supposed to do if I've been accused and I say it's not true? How do I defend myself? And I think this is where the same thing is playing out right now when it comes to the allegations against Joe Biden.
Right.
So the New York Times did a big deal where they're like, well, this is why we took so long investigating the allegations against Biden compared to the allegations against Brett Kavanaugh. What happened here was, in the case of Vanessa Tyson, she went to the Washington Post. The Washington Post interviewed her, went through the whole deal, and then decided not to do a story. A year goes by. When the Northam blackface photo comes out, that weekend, it was as if by that Monday, Northam was going to resign. That Sunday night, Tyson posts a comment to a friend, and the friend leaks the comment, and that's how her allegation became public. Right. And so that's what happened there. And so what you have here is you have a conundrum where you have 2 women who say this happened. He says it was consensual. It did not happen. He now comes in and says, wait a minute. I know that was a person who was in the room. And he's saying, why did Watson never bring that person up? Why did her attorney never bring that person up? So the question then becomes, how do you even have it investigated if all they want is an impeachment hearing? And he's saying, wait a minute, you can actually still file a criminal complaint that's within the statute of limitations where they can actually investigate him and potentially file charges.
Yeah, I never got the vibe that Northam was actually going to resign. Definitely not when...
Hold on. So Brooke first, Reese, then Greg. Brooke.
Shockingly, I never got the vibe that Northam was going to resign. Definitely not when it looked like he was
it was close.
Show off the moonwalk during a press conference.
No, it was
But I also think that...
It was close.
I get what you're saying, but what we have right now is 2 people who are telling different versions of a story. There's an allegation, well, 3 people, but there were the women on one side, there was allegations that were made. He's saying they're not true. Both of them want to handle this in different ways. None of that is proof of either person's story. And I can't sit here and say that, pretend as if the world is just unfair to men when it comes to rape allegations.
No.
The way he wants it to be handled it's not happening that way.
Well, no. Actually, the way all 3 want to handle it is not happening.
Right. Exactly.
Reese, go ahead.
Yeah, but again, I have to just bring it back to the point that a criminal investigation has a higher standard of proof, a higher burden of proof. It's far more likely to result in no charges being brought whatsoever. And so in that case, would he get to say, I've been exonerated? Of course. That's the first thing that he's going to say.
Well, how about this here? So, how about this here? So what if that was an impeachment hearing and he doesn't get impeached? Does he still say, I get exonerated?
The same as he could just as easily say he's exonerated in that instance as well. But again, it's like I said, it's a matter of restorative justice. I don't think that any person gets to demand what restorative justice looks like for a woman. I don't think that a woman not wanting to subject herself to a criminal complaint that's likely to end in no charges whatsoever is is somehow lying or is sinister. It's an impasse.
So how about so let me ask you this, Reese.
He has this stain on his reputation. If he's not innocent, then he doesn't suffer any kind of criminal charges or anything like that. But it damages his political career. You do have to wonder about the timing with the whole blackface scandal. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to politicize two rape victims.
Well, no, but here's the problem though. Here's the deal though. It is politicized because here's the piece. You get Republicans who were saying, yeah, we're open for an impeachment inquiry, want to take out, obviously, a Democrat lieutenant governor. When we say no person gets to decide what restorative justice is, okay, so the issue that you're now dealing with, though, is that, so let's just say, let's say Justin Fairfax wasn't lieutenant governor, and there was no access to an impeachment inquiry. Well, then what other process do you have other than a criminal? You could say, well, that's a civil one.
Quiet, though.
Huh?
Maybe the women would have kept quiet at that point. I think what happens
at what point? At what point?
If he wasn't lieutenant governor, maybe there's other reasons why women don't come forward other than like the idea that you can look at it two ways. You can look at it like possibly these women were like, absolutely not. He cannot govern a state. Absolutely not. That crosses the line. I have to say something. I'm willing to put my story out there and all of my personal business out there because this is just too far. Or you can say, oh, it's a political hit job because his opponents don't want him to be governor. It just seems like it's weighing real heavy on the second one, and that's not a shock.
Well, it's not. Here's the deal, Greg. What is before us again, and this is where I think if you're a man or you're a woman and you're looking at this, the question then comes out: what's fair and just? And do you even arrive at a point where you reach a conclusion? If you're these two women, and they say we want justice, but we only want to do it this way, got it. Fairfax over here is saying, wait a minute, I ain't do this. So what's justice for him? Does he get the benefit of the doubt? And that's really sort of where this thing now sits, which is why I think, unlike other people, they would just be not even bringing it up. His whole deal is like, no, I'm going to keep talking about this. And actually, that actually was the headline thing in the Washington Post, why Justin Fairfax continues to talk about this.
Yeah, no question. I mean, clearly he's talking about it.
Go, Greg, then Reese. Greg, go ahead.
Clearly he's talking about it because, among other things, his political future is at stake. Let's be very clear. Black people don't get the benefit of the doubt. There is no, I think I learned that probably my first week of law school. There is no such thing as innocent until proven guilty. You've got a serial sexual abuser, self-celebrating sexual abuser, who's the president of the United States. And those hillbillies in the legislature in Richmond have no investment in the women or men involved in this. And whether it be the rape of Reese Taylor in Alabama, whether it be Joanne Little killing her captor and then being persecuted during the 1960s or 70s, whether it be, you read the book, The Dark End of the Street, Rosa Parks, her initial forays into politics were taking the testimony of rape victims in Alabama. These are black women. You don't accuse white people of anything. And in this set of circumstances, there is black people on black people crime. And so when you start talking about the idea of innocence until proven guilty, it's a myth. And when we disaggregate a story like this and normalize gender as if somehow it operates outside of the field of race, we are left with the idea that these black women will be treated like white women. There is no common standard. So, yes, I think we should believe people. We should believe women. And yes, I think Justin Fairfax should continue to pursue the strategy that will unearth what he sees to be the truth. And as we say, there are conflicting stories, but I guess finally, my question is this. If you're in, as I said before, if you are in a system where we know that it is a human system and it's not perfect and it's not math and there's no innocent until proven guilty, what are the best possible circumstances for trying to discover the truth if we assume that if the notion of woman, the social construct of woman, somehow converges with biology, then you've got a woman who is in charge of investigation in one state and a woman who's in charge of investigation in the other state who have said, we will pursue this. Would we then say that they might have a level of sensitivity to the concerns of other Black women who might be reticent in a criminal process? I don't have an answer. I'm just saying we should think a little bit more systematically about this nature of this and take away this idea that any of these things operate in this ideal world. We're living in a world, and that world is a human world. And race in this society is the centerpiece of how we should be examining any of this.
Final comments before I go to Gerald Albright. Reese, go ahead.
My final comment is that I agree with you, Dr. Carr. Race does play an issue on it. The fact that these are two Black women who have accused Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax of it is why he is able to, not have been subjected to more rigorous investigation in Virginia in terms of a political investigation. It is why it's so easy to be dismissive of these women. It's why it's so, and I'm not saying that that's what you gentlemen are doing, but I'm saying in general, Black women as rape victims are not valued as much. Look at how many women had to be subjected to R. Kelly before anything was done. It took dozens of people to come forward. And I'm not putting Justin Fairfax on that level. But yes, when we talk about race, we cannot just talk about the persecution of Black men. We also have to talk about the dismissal and the violence that Black women are subjected to. And so we do not know what happened. And we might not get to an understanding of what happened in a transparent or public way, whether it's criminal investigation or a political investigation. But that's just the circumstances that we find ourselves in.
Well, actually, so I think the reason you have not seen a political investigation in Virginia, first of all, let's fully explain that. One, what happened was in Virginia, you have the governor, lieutenant governor, and then the attorney general. What happened was the allegations, the blackface comes out, it hits Northam. Then, and then when it looked as if Fairfax was going to ascend to the governor's mansion, what happened after that? The blackface picture came out of the attorney general. And so here you had two white men, blackface, in between a Black man accused of sexual assault. And then you had Republicans who were saying, well, let's go after impeachment hearings for Fairfax. The people say, oh, hold up. So y'all Republicans ain't going to say jack about the two white men, but then you're going to target the Black man. So in that case, it's not they weren't listening to two Black women. What you had are the dynamics of Republicans, and now the Democrats, after the last election, controlled both state houses. You had that political dynamic that was going on. And then it was like, oh, so y'all going to take the brother out, but you're going to ignore the two white men who bracket him. All of that, and then what Greg is saying, then it was like, oh, wait a minute, it was a Black female DA in Boston. It's a Black female DA in Raleigh, where Duke is. And so you're right. You got a Black man, two Black women, two Black DAs, and all of this mixed in. Go ahead. Final comment, Brooke.
And I totally understand what you're saying, and I get what you're saying, but we can't dismiss these women's stories.
No, I'm not dismissing. I'm just laying out facts. Go ahead.
But it's like what people do when they bring up Weinstein as in defense of like R. Kelly. Just because there were two very clearly people who did something wrong doesn't mean that this story doesn't matter too. It has nothing to do with each other for me.
Oh, no. It matters. What I'm saying is what happened in Virginia. So when Reese said that the political issue there, the dynamics were, I was walking people through exactly what happened, and it was like Northam, then it was like Fairfax, then the AG came in. And so now people in Virginia were like, okay, so do we go after Fairfax and ignore Northam and Mark, I forgot his last name, the AG? Do we go after? All of that it was happening all at the same time. That's what happened there. Go ahead.
Yeah, but none of the facts that we have that we've all thrown out, because we've all acknowledged that we don't know exactly what happened. But all of the facts that we've thrown out, all of the different processes and the timelines, none of that means that these two women are not telling the truth.
Right.
So
we haven't thrown out right. But what is happening? Yeah. Right. I'm simply, first of all, for people who don't even understand exactly what happened. So this is all things that have happened. We're still at the point here of, okay, how do you move forward? There are people who are saying Fairfax should not run for governor. There are people who are saying, wait a minute, he hasn't been convicted. There's been nothing. Why shouldn't he run? Then you have people who are saying, well, they should be believed. Others who are saying he should believe. And what you're dealing with here, again, is a situation where you have allegations, a denial, and you really have no path to even have any sort of conclusion, if you will. That's the conundrum all of this is in. Now that he throws out, which we're already doing the story, now that he throws out that there was another person present, now the question comes in, okay, does Meredith Watson and her attorney respond to that? Was somebody else there? Yes or no? That's what we'll have to see. Finish, Brooke, and then I got to go to Gerald.
No, I respect that. It's just they don't have to. And that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't give us a new set of facts on which person is telling the truth.
Right, but no, further, no,
it sucks to have like a story like this, and there is nothing. But yeah, it's not going the way that he would like it. It looks like they're saying life hasn't gone the way they would like it. And if he wants to run for governor, he will run for governor. And the people on the side that are saying he should still run for governor, they'll vote for him.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This is the deal.
Yeah.
No one is. That's what I'm saying. You do not have a process. Well, you do have a process, but they want it one way. He said there's another way. So the question is, what happens? And we'll see what now happens if there's any response from Meredith Watson or her attorney after the rash of tweets took place today.
Just really quick, one more thing. Also, because the way this is being discussed, as far as like a criminal investigation does not have to be initiated by the alleged victim. So it doesn't. I guess that's part of this as well. It does not have to be initiated. They don't have to go and say, he's saying go to them and then get this initiated. They'll do it. They could be investigating this.
Good point.
So
that's up to those DAs.
It has nothing to do with the victim, and exactly.
That's up to
so
those.
That's part of it too.
That's up to those DAs.
They might actually, as black women, they might be being sensitive to those black women. And the thing that always bothers me is, rape is not a woman's issue if our community understands that every woman's got a father, brothers, friends. I mean, the same way that every man has. We think about this thing as if these are these constructs are not living people. And it may very well be that these two women who are district attorneys are saying, we're not going to put those sisters through that. That's a very good point, though. They don't have to. Yeah, they don't have to have their permission, yeah.
So where are the DAs?
Good question.
They can investigate, and so far they haven't. So we'll actually see what happened next. Brooke, Reese, Greg, I certainly appreciate it. Thanks a bunch. Folks, we told you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot. Gerald Albright was raising money for Musician Relief's Fund. He is actually live streaming that as we speak. There were some issues. We were supposed to go to it at 7:45, but there were some issues. They had to shut the live stream down and came back. So let's go to it right now.
Lovely day. Woo! Rest in peace. Rest in heaven, Bill. God bless his family. Sending condolences to them. All right, y'all. We're going to keep it moving. Let's see. So this song has been with me for a number of years. A little quick story. I was in Nairobi, Kenya, some years ago, and I'll paint the picture for you. I was in my hotel room. It was about 6:30 a.m. And I just woke up off the pillow, like I always do, thank God. And I was singing this song. I couldn't get this song out of my head. And I'm like, wow, why am I singing this song? You know, and it was interesting because being a jazz guy, I'm normally listening to all the jazz greats, you know, George Duke, Herbie, Stanley Clarke, all the wonderful jazz greats. But this song came out of the pop world, and it came from a wonderful group called the Carpenters. And I'm a big fan of the Carpenters, but I just don't wake up, especially at 6 a.m., singing Carpenter songs, you know. So, but it felt good, and I'm now walking around the room, and I'm singing this song, and it feels so good, and I made a promise to myself that when I got back to the States, I would go in the studio and record an instrumental version of this song. So we did. And I know you know this song. I'm sure it's been with you for decades, as it's been with me. It's a song called Close to You. And you remember the sweet version that the Carpenters did, nice and light and airy. Well, we decided to, you know, I'm that contemporary jazz R&B guy. I had to mix some funk in there. So our version sounds a little bit different, but we hope you enjoy our version of Close to You. Check it out. All right, y'all, close to you. Little bit different version than the original, right? And I gotta say that those background vocals were shared by myself and my lovely daughter, Selena Albright. And she and her great husband, Josh Morey, brought us a wonderful grandson, Gavin Eli, about 3 weeks ago. So out of all the bad news in 2020, the Creator will bless you with some good news. Me and my wife Glennis are grandparents for the first time. So you know this kid is going to be spoiled rotten. Selena and Josh, it's coming. But we're just so happy and elated. All right. Just another memo, another commercial. One of the main reasons why we're doing this broadcast is because we want to acquire donations for musicians around the world who are in dire need of some funding. You know, they're having glitches with the stimulus packages, and then you have over 22 million people filing for unemployment. And, you know, the system's crippled now, so we have to find creative ways and more direct ways to get funding to people who really, really need it. That's what we're all about. And music always seems to be, both in good situations and bad situations, the anchor, you know, the foundation to make people feel better. And so that's why we're here. We're messengers of the music. And I speak on behalf of all my colleagues who are doing the same thing. I've been on the internet pretty fluently watching other musicians do live broadcasts. I just saw the great Marcus Anderson earlier today. He had a great show. You know, just a lot of folks that are just reinventing the wheel right now. So I'm on that mission too. All right, so we want you to donate once again at Cash App. We don't have PayPal, just the only option today is Cash App. If you don't have the app, just quickly download it. It's easy to set up. And all over the world, we want you to donate because this is truly a worthy cause. My username is Gerald, A-A, Gerald, A-A, with the $ in front. And if you forget that, once you get your Cash App set up, just put in my name, Gerald Albright, and then my icon will come up and you'll see, you know, the true Gerald Albright account there, okay? So thank you in advance for your donations. We appreciate you. We know that our wonderful nation always comes through when it's time. And it's the people of the world who are going to solve this problem, you know. The leadership, good or bad, the people have to come together and make this happen. So let's do all of our social distancing. Let's wear our masks. Let's do everything that they're telling us to do. Let's stay indoors if we can. I know that's hard. It's even hard for me. I'm a golfer, so, you know, I'm pouting over here. I need to play some golf, so. But it's all good. All right, no more of the commercial. We're going to go back to the music. Most people who have come to my shows know that I'm a huge James Brown fan, big James Brown fan. I was that little guy at 7 or 8 years old on a hardwood floor with a broomstick trying to do the mashed potatoes in the James Brown. You won't see any of that on this live stream, but that's how it was back in the day. But James is a big part of my production, my songwriting, my approach to music, because James brought funk like nobody else. But we're going to do a flip. We're going to do a 180, actually. It's not going to be a funky song. It's going to be one of his famous ballads. And I recorded it some years ago, and I pretty much do it in all of my shows. This is called It's a Man's World. We hope you enjoy our rendition. Check it out. Yes, indeed. Man's world. All right, y'all. I need about a 10-second pause here. Saxophone players know this. Every now and then, you will have a pad that sticks and won't open properly when it's time. So let me just fix this real quick because we want everything to be on the money for you. All right. Hopefully that fixes it. All right, y'all. Are you having a good time? I know I am. You having a great time too? All right. My wife's having a good time, so happy wife, happy life. You know what I'm saying? Yes, Lord. Okay, so, yes. We live in Colorado now. We've been here since 2005, so we're celebrating 15 plus years of being here. We love Colorado. I'm originally from Los Angeles, but in 2005, we decided that we needed a life change, you know, just kind of slow the roll a little bit. And so we moved, and out of that move came a wonderful project called New Beginnings. And it's a tune that I had the pleasure of writing and producing. And so we'd like to do that for you right now. This happens to be the title track, New Beginnings. This is the current version of it, which shows up on my 30 project, which I'm celebrating 30 years. Actually, it's probably 33, 34 years now of being in the music business as a recording artist. It came out a few years ago. Pick that up, by the way. You can find it up on Amazon or iTunes, or we'll ship it to you directly. We can make it happen, Captain. So, so this is New Beginnings. We hope you enjoy our version of the current version of New Beginnings. Check it out.